Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him? Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to America First, where we still believe in the Constitution, the rule of law, and the God-given freedoms this nation was built upon. If you're tired of being lied to by the media, if you're fed up with corruption being swept under the rug, and if you're ready to fight for the truth, then you've found your people. Do me a favor right now. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share it, because the only way we cut through the censorship and the propaganda is if we speak boldly and support one another. Now, let's get into what happened in the Senate. Senator John Kennedy just did something almost no one in Washington has the guts to do anymore. He confronted the DOJ and FBI with actual questions that get to the heart of what millions of Americans are thinking. He didn't dance around it. He didn't ask carefully worded softball questions. He stared them in the face and asked what needs to be asked. Why is our justice system rewarding criminals, protecting elites, and covering up the truth?
Mr. Director, worry not. We'll make sure your agency is adequately funded. This judge you arrested in Wisconsin, she was breaking federal law, wasn't she?
Yes, that's why we arrested her.
She was helping an illegal immigrant escape being taken into custody. Is that right?
Yes, and the field agents decided to open the case, work the case.
And as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow?
We do not.
If you're a state court judge, do you get to decide you don't want to follow federal law?
No.
And if you violate federal law, you get arrested, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
That's called equal treatment under the law, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
You remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. I think Ms. Page worked for Justice. The Inspector General found in its investigation that they hated President Trump and they really wanted Secretary Clinton to win. Is that true?
That's correct, sir.
And this would be the same same Ms. Page who sent an email to Mr. Strzok with whom she was having an affair. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok with the FBI, senior official at the FBI replied, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Did I read that correctly?
You did, Senator.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page got quit before she could get fired. Mr. Strzok was fired. And predictably, they filed a lawsuit because in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October of 2016, shortly before the election, the New York Post wrote a story that was widely covered talking about Mr. Hunter Biden's influence peddling scheme based on his laptop. A couple of weeks later, Secretary of State, soon to be Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, organized a group of 51 so-called intelligence experts. Had some real rock stars on the list. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, and they said, oh, no, the story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah. The FBI had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's start with the judge in Wisconsin. According to testimony, this judge was arrested for actively helping an illegal immigrant evade federal custody. Now think about that. A sitting judge, someone trusted to enforce the law, chose to break it, and not for some obscure technicality. She deliberately aided someone in avoiding federal immigration enforcement. That's not a gray area. That's criminal behavior. What Kennedy did was remind everyone that in this country, at least in theory, no one is above the law. Judges don't get to decide which federal laws they want to ignore. And when they violate those laws, they should be arrested like anyone else. The entire situation raises a major issue. We are allowing lawlessness in our courts and from our so-called leaders, and the left pretends it's compassion. They say it's empathy, but it's not. It's a betrayal of the rule of law. If we can't rely on judges to follow the law, then what kind of country are we living in? The answer: one that's rapidly becoming a two-tiered system where elites get away with everything and everyday Americans get thrown under the bus. Kennedy then brought up the infamous duo, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Let's not forget who they are. Strzok was a top FBI official. Page was a lawyer with the Department of Justice. They were both involved in the FBI's investigation into Donald Trump during the 2016 election. But behind closed doors, they were exchanging messages, personal and professional, that made it crystal clear they hated Trump and were actively trying to prevent him from winning. One of those messages from Page read, "Trump's not going to become president, right? Right?" And Strzok responded, "No. No, he won't. We'll stop it." Let's be blunt about what that means. That is not two low-level staffers venting their frustrations. That is two senior federal officials at the highest levels of power involved in an active investigation into a presidential candidate saying they were going to stop him from winning the presidency. That's election interference. That's corruption at the highest level of federal law enforcement. Now, what happened to them? Lisa Page quit before she could be fired. Peter Strzok was eventually let go. But that's not the end of it. Thanks to Kennedy's questioning, we learned something most of the media never reported. Both of them received massive taxpayer-funded settlements after they left government. Peter Strzok was handed over $1 million. Lisa Page got $800,000. Why? Because in Washington, if you're part of the establishment, even if you betray your oath, you get rewarded. That's how deep the rot goes. Kennedy even joked that in D.C., it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. And he's right. The system is rigged to protect the insiders, no matter what they've done. But it gets worse. Kennedy pressed for details on who authorized those payments. The answer? The Department of Justice under the Biden administration. The settlements were approved by then-Attorney General Merrick Garland's team. So we have a situation where individuals who tried to sabotage an election were rewarded by the very administration that benefited from their interference. It's disgusting. It's corrupt. And it should terrify anyone who believes in fair and free elections. From there, Kennedy transitioned to another major scandal, the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, this is a story we all know the media tried to bury. Just before the 2020 election, the New York Post broke the story about Hunter Biden's laptop and its contents, emails suggesting pay-to-play schemes, influence peddling in foreign countries, and all kinds of inappropriate conduct. But within days, the left mobilized. Antony Blinken, who is now Secretary of State, organized a letter signed by 51 so-called intelligence experts who claimed the story was Russian disinformation. Those names included former CIA directors and other high-level spooks, all willing to lie to protect Joe Biden's campaign. Here's the kicker. The FBI had already had the laptop for 10 months. They knew it was real. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation. The Inspector General confirmed that. But they stayed silent. They let the lie spread. They let the media and big tech censor the story. And they sat by while the American people were manipulated. Why? Because telling the truth might have hurt Joe Biden's chances of winning. Kennedy asked a simple question. Who at the FBI made that decision? Who decided not to let the American people know the laptop was legitimate? The answer he got? I don't have that name in front of me. That's the same excuse we hear over and over from these bureaucrats. No accountability. No transparency. Just stonewalling. Then came the moment that shocked even me. Kennedy looked straight at Kash Patel and asked the one question we've all been waiting to hear in public. Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or was he killed? Now you could feel the tension in the room. Kash Patel responded by saying, I believe he hanged himself. But Kennedy wasn't satisfied with that. He asked again, when will we get the full details? Patel said the DOJ is still working on it, that they have to protect victims and redact sensitive material. But here's the problem. We've heard this song and dance before. The truth is always coming soon. It's under review. And then nothing ever happens. We know what this looks like. Epstein had connections to the world's most powerful people, politicians, royals, billionaires. He was about to testify. He had dirt on names they don't want revealed. And somehow, in one of the most secure detention centers in America, he kills himself. The cameras fail. The guards fall asleep. And we're supposed to just accept that. It's a joke, and not a funny one. It's a stain on our justice system, and a clear message to every American. If you're powerful enough, you'll never face consequences. Not even in death. Let me tell you something, folks. What John Kennedy did in that hearing was more than just politics. It was a defense of the truth. It was a rare moment of courage in a swamp full of cowards. He asked the questions that matter. He challenged the narrative. And he exposed the system for what it really is, a rigged game protecting the elites while the rest of us are left in the dark. But we don't have to stay in the dark. That's why America First exists. That's why we're here. To ask questions. To expose the lies. To demand justice. If you believe in that mission, if you want to take your country back, then this is your call to action. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Share it with everyone you know. Because the truth won't spread itself. The media won't do it. The politicians won't do it. It's up to us. This is America First. We will not be silenced. We will not surrender. And we will not stop until the truth is known. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.